Show me your heart. I know that it's beating. Tell me that you love me too. So I know your heart is true. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. This episode of Proof of Love is brought to you by Vaultoro. Vaultoro is a gold hedging solution for the crypto community. One of the challenges of investing in cryptocurrencies is dealing with volatility. Keeping a diversified portfolio is a key to healthier returns. I keep about 10% of my crypto assets in gold using Vaultoro. Vaultoro allows me to open a gold wallet in seconds where I can trade easily with cryptos and gold. What I like about using Vaultoro instead of Tether is that the gold in my Vaultoro wallet is insured, audited, vaulted in Switzerland, and unlike fiat money, gold has increased in value for the last 20 years. Visit Vaultoro.gold/Tatiana today and get zero trading fees for the first 3 months. That is vault, like a gold vault, and oro, which is Spanish for gold. Vaultoro, ale. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Proof of Love. Today, we're going to take on Siskel and Ebert, push them out of the way, and do our own little movie review of a movie about, what is it called? A Courtship. It's very weird. It's a movie on Amazon. But thank you so much for listening to the show today. Proof of Love is brought to you from New Jersey and other places around the country. I'm joined by two of my beautiful co-hosts, Dr. Stephanie Murphy.
Hi there.
And beautiful Lauren Kazovitz.
Hello, everybody.
Very good. So Stephanie likes to watch these weird movies and then she tells us about them. Like 30 Second Fiance or like, Married at First Sight and all this weird stuff.
It's 90 Day Fiance. Thank you very much. But I do. I love to watch movies about marriage. And actually, my dad got me started on this. I was really surprised because I would have never pictured him watching something about like a reality TV show about marriage. But I found out that he watched Married at First Sight. And Married at First Sight is a reality show where experts, like psychological experts, arrange a marriage between two people that they interview a bunch of candidates and then they match up couples. And the first time they see each other is at their own wedding. So that's why it's called Married at First Sight. And I just got hooked. I got so addicted to the show. And, at the time, I couldn't see myself ever getting married and I wasn't like a big fan of marriage. But I liked the show because it was so revealing about how different people act in relationships and how do people handle a difficult situation like that where you are just married, you're committed to someone, but you don't really know them and you're trying to get to know each other. And there are even times where I felt like that in relationships where I do know the person really well. It's like, oh, wait a minute, like maybe I don't know them as well as I thought. And so how do they handle arguments and conflicts and how do they deal with stressful situations? It was very interesting. So, of course, then that opened up like Pandora's box of reality shows about marriage and relationships. And so then I started watching 90 Day Fiance, which is a show about Americans who have international relationships with somebody who doesn't live in America. And then they're trying to be together. So the U.S. has this thing called a fiancé visa, where if you're in a relationship with someone else and you want to get married and you want them to come live in America, you can apply for this fiancé visa. But the catch is that once they get the visa, you have to get married within 90 days. And then sometimes people have been in long distance relationships for years and they haven't really spent that much time together in person. And they only have 90 days to like pull the trigger on getting married. So it's like a lot of pressure. So again, you have one of these situations where people are getting married, but they don't know each other very well. So this was another fascinating show to me. There's a lot of drama. It's very high conflict. But anyway, so, we've established that I love these kinds of shows. So, of course, when I was browsing Amazon Prime for things to watch during dinner one night, I came across an interesting documentary, and it was called A Courtship. And that's the one we're going to talk about first. Is that right?
Yes. Today we're doing one movie. And we're also going to be doing more of these movie episodes, so you guys can check back. But today we're going to talk about The Courtship, because I think there's a lot to unpack with that one, too.
Oh, yeah, there is a lot to unpack. So, okay.
Yeah, if you want to tell us the premise of the movie, that'd be great.
Sure. Okay, so A Courtship is a documentary about a woman who is a born-again Christian, and forgive me, I don't know exactly what type of Christian sect she is, but she is a very religious Christian woman. And she came to religion a little bit later in her life. You find out later, maybe had something to do with her parents getting divorced, and this kind of shook her faith and reality and trust in relationships. But she became Christian when she was like a sophomore in college, I think she said. And at that time, she started to adopt the belief that the modern way of dating can be harmful to women. And women should not live on their own and try to find a mate themselves because they're going to mess it up. And what you really need is for your family to choose a husband for you and to make sure he's a good Christian man and that he's suitable as a husband and that he shares the same values and that he's compatible with the family. And they're going to make the choice for you because they're better at it than you are. And also the process of dating can be traumatic and harmful. So this woman doesn't really trust her real family, so she actually adopts a spiritual family that she met at church, and she asks them if they will be her spiritual parents. These are just like people she's unrelated to, a couple with a couple of children that are married, and she met them at church, and they pray about it. They're like, okay, we'll consider it. They pray about it. And they're like, well, we can really only do this, Kelly. Kelly is the woman who's single and looking for a husband. We can really only do this, Kelly, if you're living under our roof. And so she's like, okay, I'll move in with you. And so they undertake this process where she moves in with them and they're finding her a husband, her spiritual parents. And at the point where the documentary starts, she's been living with them for 7 years and has not yet been successful at finding a husband. Lauren, you want to jump in?
Yeah, there are so many things to talk about here, but one thing I wanted to stress also, and I'm not sure if it's this whole courtship process or just her in particular, so maybe you can clarify for me. They not only believe that somebody else should be finding that mate for you, but they're also vehemently anti-intimacy, like sexual and physical intimacy, to
Yes.
the point that they believe you should hold your first kiss for your husband and wife. Your first kiss, not sex, not hooking up, kiss. It is so mind-boggling. And as I'm watching the documentary, that was something that just stuck in my head so much.
Yeah, this couple had 2 little girls and they're reading books to their little girls about saving your first kiss for the altar and when you get married. And then this adult woman, Kelly, who's looking for a husband, is crying as she's hearing these books because she's like, oh, I didn't save my first kiss for my husband. And you can tell that she feels really ashamed. And I was like, oh my God, this is so terrible. She feels so much shame about this. And I think it's needless.
Oh, me too. And there are so many things here, but two of the things I found really interesting is that her family she was raised with, they are a secular family. So she was raised in a secular household and her parents did divorce. This family that she is kind of adopted into, the dad is way more of the chooser. I would say the wife is just kind of, she's there. She's
right,
along for the ride to help.
In this kind of family, the man is the head of the household and he makes the decisions and the wife just kind of goes along with it to minimize conflict.
Exactly. And there were so many things I was thinking about as I was watching it. I was really struggling to just totally focus on it because it was just blowing my mind in so many ways. This woman is so much younger. Why is he bringing her in? Is there a reason why she hasn't found anybody in 6 years? Is he in love with her? Is there something?
I was trying to figure that out too. Is he in love with her? But I don't know. They don't seem that creepy to me.
I know. I agree with you. I think that's the weird part. Their ideas are just bonkers off the walls, but it does seem like they're genuinely trying to help her find love in this really, in my opinion, overly misguided way. So
yeah, so can we talk about how the spiritual dad, his name is Ron, interviews potential men for her to marry, and he's asking them questions like, what would you think if your church had a gay pastor or something? And the guy's like, well, I guess I'd be okay with that. And then he's like, nope, next. He meets these guys for coffee. He goes on dates with the guys before Kelly even meets the guys.
Yeah, and his dates, he had such a weird attached relationship to the guy that was the main focus of the film. Like, he was like, wow, man, it's really going to be, I mean, sorry, I don't give it away, but
Oh no, yeah, let's
like
talk
so
about that.
weird with his relationships with the men as well, because yeah, he's basically going on dates with these guys for her.
Yeah, so what happens is after the setup where, this spiritual family that Kelly finds and adopts, and they adopt her and she lives with them, they believe in this process of courtship where you don't have any physical contact with someone before you get married, and your parents or your spiritual parents are choosing your mate for you based on compatibility with the family and sharing of Christian values and things like that. Um, they find there's one guy which Kelly actually met this guy on her own. She met him at a party through a friend of a friend, and she's sort of like stalking him on Facebook. His name is Ross. And she's like, ooh, Ross posted something on Facebook that I really liked. And then she tells her spiritual parents about him. Oh, and the thing that he was posting on Facebook was about courtship and how he's into this process of courtship as well. And so he's not dating, he's courting. He's only looking to find a wife with no physical intimacy and this chaperoned kind of weird, like dating or whatever you call it, courting. And so she really liked that. And she tells her spiritual parents about it. And they're like, oh, okay, we're going to start checking him out. So they invite him and his brother over to the house for dinner. And then they're kind of interviewing him over dinner about the process of courtship and how he was raised in it. And they're interviewing his brother and they're trying to like bond with him. Go ahead, Tatiana. Tell me about what you thought about that.
I mean, I think it was obviously quite strange. What is there really to say about that? I mean, the whole thing is really absurd. The thing that I did think was kind of interesting was, she was kind of experiencing this really expanded version of what a lot of women dating today are going through. And I thought that was like pretty sad, but I also thought that was something that some people could maybe empathize with, obviously not on her level. But it's almost like an exaggerated version of super fear and just getting beaten around so many times. Now you're just like a nutball. And I mean,
that's what I was thinking. Like, do you think there's some truth to what she's saying? Like, obviously, it's really extreme.
Yeah.
To do.
I do 100%. I think that there is a little grain of truth in what made her do that. Like, she's been dating all these jerks. I mean, this version is very extreme. But, when she's arguing with her mom, because her parents come in and they're like, listen, you're not meeting any guys. What are you doing? She starts saying, well, look, you ask your friends who to date. This is the same thing. It's not the same thing, but there's something to be said for that. And I understand, the fear of not trusting your heart and being like, my heart is an idiot. I can't listen to this thing. Somebody else has to, intervene.
Yeah, you're talking about a scene where she goes home to her actual parents or her mother because her parents are divorced. She goes home to her mother and father or stepfather over Christmas, and her mother is like, baby, what are you doing? Like living with these people? Like, if you want a husband, you have to get out there and meet people. Like, you can't just wait for God to bring you a husband. And she's basically like, nope, I'm trusting God. God is going to bring me a husband if that's what's meant to happen. She's like placing all of her faith in God, and she's being quite passive about it, as the mother points out.
Well,
yeah, that was wild.
I think that added a lot of I think that added a lot for me. I was able to kind of see a little bit of where she was coming from. But I think there's kind of two parts to this whole situation, because it's not just that she has this couple that are picking out men for her. It's also that she has these really, really old school beliefs that when she gets married, she has no opinion on anything.
Yeah, that was weird.
And she just is going on and on about when she gets married, she's giving up her right. I think she used these words almost exactly, that she's giving up her right to have an opinion, and that whatever her husband believes is what she has to go along with. And that whole thing was so nuts to me. I think that's what makes this all even more extreme. It's not just that she has this couple picking things for her. It's that I don't even know. I don't want to judge her in any way. I don't even know if it's even about religion at that point. She doesn't want to make any decisions. At the end of the day, she doesn't trust herself for anything. She wants to be a passive submissive. Like,
Yeah, this was a little bit kinky, I could say.
It was, right? Like there was something there. Like she doesn't want to make decisions. She doesn't want to have an opinion. She doesn't want any choice. She doesn't want to make a mistake. And she doesn't trust herself in any way, shape, or form to get anything right. And to me, that was the saddest thing of all of it. Like she's like a shell. What brought her to that point that she's such a shell that she doesn't believe that she can do anything right with love?
She did push back at him once, though, which was sort of the thing that broke the camel's back.
Yes.
So he had said something about, I guess, a violent death that had passed between two friends, like a brother killed another brother or something terrible. And he was saying that, it's God's will. And then there was the mom and then the girl, and then they were kind of looking at that. They're like, well, I don't know if that's God's will. It's just, part of not his plan, but, it's okay. Because they were quibbling over this tiny little distinction.
Yeah, it was a little theological disagreement. And the spiritual mom felt strongly that this was not in God's plan. And then Kelly asked the guy about it that she was courting. And he was like, well, no, I disagree with you. And then it caused basically this was like the fight that basically broke them up. I mean, we don't want to give spoilers here, but this was a big fight.
Do you really think people are going to go home and watch this and they're like, oh man, I didn't know what would happen?
Okay, maybe not. Maybe we should say what happened. So basically, This is the fight that breaks up the courtship. And, ironically, throughout the whole thing, Kelly's talking a lot about how she's guarding her heart through this courtship process. She's protecting herself from being hurt because she doesn't get physically intimate with him at all. And then also her spiritual mother is saying the same thing. She's saying, we are protecting Kelly's heart. We're protecting her from being hurt. This way, if she breaks up with him, she never has to see him again and think, oh my gosh, I kissed him. Or worse. And feel terrible because she never kissed him. And I think that did not work. She still became attached to him and she still developed feelings for him, even though there was no physical intimacy. And I at the end of the day, I just don't think it's possible to guard your heart to the point where you never get hurt. That's part of relationships. That's part of the whole experience.
I agree. I mean, and also just bringing in a little bit more of modern dating and kind of what the kids today are doing. There are a lot of people on dating apps that are talking for months. I'm not saying it's healthy, but they're talking for months before they actually even meet for the first time and getting very attached to each other. So yes, intimacy is going to bond you even further, and it might warp, your feelings a little bit and make you think you have stronger feelings than you do at times. But at the end of the day, you can still build emotional intimacy without physical intimacy. And they're just not really taking that fully into consideration, I don't think. I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, there really are so many things here that just make it so wild, because you have this really old school idea of courtship. That's one thing. Then you have the religion. That's another thing. Then you have the physical intimacy. Then you have the being submissive and not making a decision. But then you also have that kind of old school kind of other international idea in different countries of an arranged marriage. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a version of an arranged marriage.
Is there anything valuable in this, though? Like, in terms of, like, is there anything that these people are taking to it that is, like, something that you identified with or that you think is a valuable lesson? Because, I mean, I think that we could all be a little bit more chaste, but this is just bananas. I mean, this is completely, like, so weird. And especially with the little girls, like, oh, I can't wait for my first kiss. And it's like sort of sexually shaming them. But I don't know, maybe there's something to be taken away. I thought it was interesting how the mom was saying to her, well, how do you know God's plan isn't for me to tell you that this isn't God's plan? And I
right.
thought,
yeah, that was a great moment. I really like that mom playing devil's advocate, right? So for me, this movie kind of reaffirmed the beliefs that I already held, which is that it is impossible to protect your heart to the point where you don't get hurt, but you're still experiencing dating and figuring out what you want from relationships. This is like driving a car with no seatbelt. Like, you're going to get hurt. You're going to crash and burn sometimes, but you get another chance and you can heal your heart. And that's okay. That's just all part of the experience. And that's what helps us learn. And also about like premarital sex and chastity. Like, I was not raised with the idea that you should save your virginity for your husband or anything like that, right? Or even the idea of virginity itself, right? Like, what is that, right? It is an idea that if you do a specific sex act between a man and a woman, a heterosexual sex act where I won't go any further than that, but everybody knows what we mean when we say virginity, right? You could do any number of other types of sex acts, and I don't know, to me, that seems to like decrease your chastity, right? Your general sense of purity, but you could technically still be a virgin. And then we see that a lot with teenagers where they take these virginity oaths and stuff. And they're like, okay, well, that means it's okay if I do these other things, which are definitely not virginal in my book. And aside from that, I just think that, okay, so it creates unintended consequences, right? When we hammer home this idea of virginity, especially for girls, and we shame them about it. And there's sort of this double standard where girls have to keep their purity, but boys really don't. It doesn't matter that much. And also, like, I just think if you shame someone about sex their whole life, and then they get married, a switch doesn't suddenly flip and the shame all goes away. The shame is still there, and they're never going to have a satisfying sex life. They're never going to have real intimacy and be okay with it. It just doesn't work that way. Lauren?
Yeah, I very much agree with that. I think it's a deeper mindset that's kind of going to stick with you for a while unless you work on it. And I don't know, I'm with you. I also was not raised with the idea that I should remain a virgin until I got married. I know that that's something that a lot of people still are raised with in this country. It's so foreign to me. I don't know, maybe it comes with having a parent from another country that I think he would just laugh so hard if somebody said, like, was your daughter keeping herself for marriage? He'd just be like, what? What do you mean? But I think further, there's a lot of things that we can take away from this documentary. Like Tatiana said earlier about how a lot of it kind of mirrored what happens in secular dating. I thought it was really interesting that she confronted him. Like, she actually had an opinion and something that she felt deeply on. She confronted him, although I will add the caveat that she did say that when she got married, those opinions go away. But they're still dating. They're still exploring. He ghosted her.
He totally ghosted her.
He ghosted her. So it's not like, oh, we're so godly and oh, we're so religious and that makes us better people. He still ghosted her. He still treated her like crap. And
hey, that was a holy ghost, okay?
Yes. And that just made me so sad. It was like, oh my God, if you're going to try to be on a higher plane, at least be on a higher plane. Like, don't save your kiss for marriage and then ghost a woman when she's talking to you about something she feels. Like, that whole thing was so sad and just, I don't think she has any options here except for to just go into deep therapy. I mean, the whole thing is just so wild, but there are different layers to this, like we were saying, and it does kind of connect into what we were talking about earlier with the 90-Day Fiancé and these Married at First Sights. I mean, what are the stats on it?
Some of the people on 90-Day Fiancé are strict Muslims, and they do not like kiss or even do any public displays of affection in certain Middle Eastern countries. And so sometimes these American women are going and dating Middle Eastern men, and they're like, we can't stay in the same hotel room because we're not married because the hotel won't let you. And we can't hold hands in public and people stare at me and things like that. Some of the couples on Married at First Sight are devout Christians, and they are all Americans, but there's one in the current season that's running right now, which just had the finale last night, and I haven't had time to watch it, but I'm so excited, where one of the women was a virgin, and she was going to the wedding, and she was picking out this crisp white dress, and she was talking to the mother of the groom who she just met that day. And she was like, well, I'm wearing a white dress, and you know what this means, don't you? And the mother was like, what? And she's like, I am a virgin. And so she told his mother before she told him. And I think she was expecting this to be really well received and the guy to be very excited about it. But the guy was just like, oh, this is a challenge. And I'm not sure if she has the maturity level that I'm looking for in a wife. And neither him nor his mother was really that excited about it.
Wow.
Oh, interesting. That
Do you think that maturity comes with that, though? Because I don't know. I think a lot of people get kind of beaten around. Like, I don't think that you're automatically an immature person just because you're a virgin. It's kind of weird to spring it up, but I mean, you're already in a weird situation. It's an unusual thing. But I don't think there's anything wrong with people saving themselves for marriage. I mean, the kiss thing is, but sex, okay, fine.
Yeah, I would say no, it doesn't necessarily mean you're immature if you're a virgin, but she was also very uncomfortable just talking about sex. And one of the things they do on Married at First Sight is that the experts sort of give them exercises to do to get to know each other and to deepen their intimacy. And one of those things is like, you know, they might have like a fishbowl full of questions and the couple pulls out questions. And one of the questions is like, how do you like your partner to initiate sex? And so they pulled that question and she was like, ugh, I wouldn't know. And she was getting really uncomfortable. And that's when he said, I'm not sure if we're quite on the same level as far as emotional maturity.
So did they end up getting married? I mean, how often do these couples actually work out?
Well, the premise of the show is that they get married to someone this is Married at First Sight now.
Okay.
The couples get matched by experts without ever seeing the person that they're going to get married to. And then they see each other for the first time at their own wedding. And then they go on a honeymoon. They move in together. To an apartment that the show pays for, like it's just temporary. And then they have 2 months to get to know each other. And then they have this thing called Decision Day where they have to decide if they want to stay married or get a divorce. So the first 2 months of their marriage is documented by these cameras, and then they have to make a decision.
Have you seen, just watching as an outside viewer, have you seen any of these couples that seem to really work?
Yes.
These experts made a good decision?
Yes, there's about 15% of the couples or something around there. So it's a low success rate, but some of the couples have been together for years, like 5 years, and have children together. And so they've really, you know, they may have had a rocky start, but some of them stayed together. A lot of them do get divorced, though. Like, it's definitely a higher divorce rate than choosing your own partner, which is about 50% for first marriages usually.
There's something I wanted to add to that, just because I hate reality shows. I mean, I can tolerate watching them once in a while, but let me give you an example of why. A friend of mine, she was supposed to be on like The Bachelorette or some kind of a show. And at the end of the day, they didn't choose her because they really wanted somebody who was going to basically pretend that all they want is a baby. And so then they're like, not only do we want you to do the show, but then like the 6 months afterward, we want you to be pregnant and blah, blah. So I don't know. I think that's kind of gross, right? Isn't that weird?
Yeah, she probably felt like a cow or something.
Yeah, she had to turn it down because she didn't want to get married. I mean, she wouldn't mind getting married, but she didn't want to have a kid right away or anything. Isn't that strange? I don't know. I thought that was like gross. So I don't trust that the experiences are that real. Although your show seems a little bit more real than something like The Bachelorette or whatever.
Yeah, I think reality TV show is not really real. Like, they definitely have storylines that they pull out, and you know, they might film 1,000 hours of content, but you only see 10 as the viewer, so they can pick out pretty much any storyline they want and use creative editing to alter it. But I will say it's very entertaining, and I think I still learn from it, and it stimulates great discussion with my my partner and friends and family.
That's a good point. I'd be curious to see what some of the intimacy issues are, or not the issues, but the exercises.
Yeah, they have things like chocolate body paint and like roll a dice that says, you know, like lick foot, or, you know, like, you know, the dice that has the body part and stuff like that.
I don't know if that's really going to build emphasis. That just sounds really stupid.
Well, they try anyway.
It's like what old people do to like get it on, because they have to like spark things up or whatever, and they get those magic dice.
Yeah. So we're short on time, so we want to wrap this conversation soon. But I have one more thing I want to talk about, and so does Lauren. So I'm just going to jump in first. Going back to the thing about like when a husband and wife like kind of decide that, or in this courtship documentary, basically the rules were from the religion that the husband is the head of the household and what he says goes, and the wife maybe has an opinion, but it doesn't really count. Like the husband is the ultimate decider. He's the dominant, right? Now, I just attended a wedding recently where the couple was basically choosing this dynamic for themselves. And they had a thing about at their wedding, like a reading about, we're going to do this. Like the wife is subordinate to the husband. The husband is the one who makes the ultimate decisions, right? And they can sort of talk about it, but he has the final say. And they were also comparing it to like the husband is the head of the family and the woman might be like the neck. And so he's like the executive and she's sort of like maybe like supporting from the shadows. And, now a lot of modern women wouldn't agree with this, right? This isn't maybe the way I want to conduct my relationship, but they chose this for themselves and they think that this makes sense, that this works for them. And I could see maybe how it might make sense, right? If you just designate one person, we can take gender out of it, but if you designate one person as sort of the CEO or the executive of the family, and they're the one who sort of has the ultimate say on decisions, it could potentially minimize conflict, right? Because I don't know, as long as there's not a strong dissenting opinion, it sometimes helps to have sort of like an executive. What do you guys think about that?
Oh, man. I don't know. I think it only works if the dynamic is there between the couple for it to work. I think when it's a broader thing, like assuming everybody feels that way, it's not going to work. But I think within some couples, yeah, that could work. I do.
I think I would want to be the executive. That would be the problem, right?
I agree. You would want to be the executive, Stephanie. I'm not sure if I want to be the executive, but either way, I mean, there's something to be said. Actually, I don't know if there's anything to be said for that whole approach. It's just kind of weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like, what did your friend like about it exactly? Was it just a lack of responsibility that she now had? What was it, Steph?
Well, she didn't say that it was that she enjoyed the lack of responsibility, but I could see the appeal of like taking a submissive role or a supportive role, let's just say, so we don't like judge it in any way. Taking a supportive role can be great because you get to sort of like lay back and you don't have to be responsible for making decisions that if they turn out wrong, right, you would be the one who made that call, right? Yeah. So there's a little bit of freedom and comfort in that, maybe. I was trying hard to understand it because I'm curious about this, right? I'm curious how people organize their relationships and what is the appeal of a dynamic like this, because, this has been something that people have done for a lot of years. So maybe there's some reasons it makes sense, but obviously there's also some reasons it doesn't make sense that I can see very clearly. So I maybe that's the appeal. I think that also people who do this maybe have a belief that men and women are sort of like naturally suited for those roles, which I don't really agree with, I guess. I don't know,
Yeah.
But some people do believe that, and it works for them, especially if they believe that, right? If they believe that they're naturally suited as a woman for a supportive role and that their husband is naturally suited for a leadership role, then they're going to act that out, right? Because that's what they believe. And so maybe it becomes sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy in some ways. I don't know. I think I want more equality. And to me, it would be ideal to sort of switch dominant roles, like if we're both we can both be the executive sometimes, and then we just talk about everything and everybody's opinions get heard. And I don't know. I mean, I think my idea of a relationship is like more fluid than that, but I can maybe see some of the appeal.
I agree with you, Steph. And the note that I wanted to add on a kind of ending topic, a few years back, I worked at a company where there were a lot of people from a country that is known for arranged marriages. It's part of their culture. It's part of their religion. And 3 specific couples that I got to know a husband, wife, and husband. One of them was part of an arranged marriage. She was miserable. And this is not me judging arranged marriages. I think it can work in certain situations. She was miserable, really unhappy. It was a set old school arranged marriage. I believe they're still together, but she was one of the most unhappy women I've ever met within her relationship. Another one, the woman is happy in her relationship because they have an arrangement and he is gay. So the parents don't know that he's gay, but he is gay, and they live kind of separate sexual lives, but they have an arranged marriage. She is very happy for whatever reason, as is he. And then the third couple had a love marriage. They decided to not do an arranged marriage, which is a little bit taboo where they're from. They had a love marriage, moved to the United States. They are extraordinarily happy. They've been married for over 30 years. I'm still friends with him on Facebook, and I'm not going by social media. I know him in real life. He's in love still. She's in love still. They buck the family tradition and the cultural tradition, and they're very happy. So I think it really is a person to person thing when it comes to this whole arranged marriage and whatever works. I mean, the woman who's married to a gay man she's very happy in her situation. So I guess that's kind of an ending note of it's particular to each person. And when you try to put this really particular situation on a broad scale, it's not going to work. But maybe on a smaller scale, it might work. That's my opinion.
Well, I think our audience should make their own decision and check out this movie. A Courtship is on Amazon Prime. So if you have Prime, you can just watch it for free. It's only about an hour long. It's kind of a weird movie. But, you've heard a good synopsis here. But if you're curious, you can certainly go and check that out. Thank you so much to our sponsor, Voltoro, for supporting the show. And go to voltoro.gold/Tatiana and get your gold and Bitcoin action going. The Tatiana show is on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but Proof of Love is on Fridays. So make sure you go to proofoflovecast.com. You could submit your questions. We've got some Q&A episodes coming out soon. So we always like to hear from our audience. And thanks so much for listening, everybody. Any final words, ladies?
I just want to add in that we also talked about Married at First Sight, which is on Lifetime, as well as available on Amazon Prime, and 90 Day Fiancé, which is on TLC, as well as on Amazon Prime, too.
You can get your relationship reality on, everyone. And be kind to one another. We love you. Bye.
Bye.
Show me your heart. I know that it's beating. Tell me that you love me too. So I know your heart is true. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. Thank you for listening to Proof of Love. Please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Proof of Lovecast. More episodes can be found at proofoflovecast.com. And make sure you leave a review on iTunes and tell your friends. Proof of Love has been brought to you by CryptoMediaHub.com, a boutique marketing and PR agency for Bitcoin and beyond. You are listening to Proof of Love with Tatiana Moroz, Dr. Stephanie Murphy, and Lauren Kazovitz. This show may contain adult content, language, and humor and is intended for mature audiences. If that's not you, please stop listening. Nothing you hear on Proof of Love is intended as financial advice, legal advice, therapy, or really anything other than entertainment. Please take everything that you hear with a grain of salt. Oh, and if you're hearing us on an affiliate network, the ideas and views expressed on this show are not necessarily those of the network that you're listening on, or of any of the sponsors or affiliate products that you may hear about on the show.